Did you ever feel like what you learned in law school didn't prepare you for the world of running a law practice? Law school didn't teach us how to start our practices the right way so that we could scale them into a thriving business. We didn't learn how to make sure that our businesses would meet our financial goals and provide the type of lifestyle we deserve. After 10 years, I was fed up with struggling in my practice and decided to begin a journey to scaling a successful practice that would actually allow me to finally live the life I've always dreamed of. I invite you to listen in on the conversations I'm having with some of the most successful solo and small firm practitioners, along with leading business entrepreneurs, and share how I am implementing what I am learning, all with the goal of helping you take control of your practice and your life. This is The Law Entrepreneur. This episode of The Law Entrepreneur is sponsored by Market Circle, the makers of Daylight, and by Spotlight Branding, helping to build your internet foundation. I use Daylight as my case management tool. It organizes all my cases, clients, my calendar, to-dos, and emails all in one app that's with me on my Mac, iPhone, and iPad. I use Daylight on my own, but you can also use it in a team. You can use Daylight to track the status of cases, delegate tasks to each other, and see everyone's schedule, all without having to interrupt anyone. Daylight is one of the tools I use to stay organized and increase efficiency. Visit marketcircle.com/daylight to try Daylight for free for 30 days. And be sure to let them know you heard about Daylight through The Law Entrepreneur to get a 50% discount on your first monthly subscription. This episode is also brought to you by my friends at Spotlight Branding. I trust them to manage the internet presence for my law firm, and I recommend them to solo lawyers every chance I get. They built a great website for me, and they use video marketing, social media, email marketing, and more to keep me top of mind with my referral network. Visit spotlightbranding.com to learn more. They're even offering a free gift for podcast listeners, which you can access at spotlightbranding.com/TLE, as in The Law Entrepreneur. Spotlightbranding.com/TLE, brought to you by our friends at Spotlight Branding. Welcome, fellow law entrepreneurs, to episode 35 of The Law Entrepreneur. My name is Neil Tyra. I'm your host as always. Today we have a very interesting guest, Karen Levian. Karen is originally a nurse, also a military veteran who became an attorney and ultimately focused her practice on Social Security disability law. And I think you're going to hear an interesting story from her about how she always wanted to do nursing and Social Security disability in particular, and then crafted her legal career around that interest. So without any further ado, let's listen to our nurse attorney, Karen Levian. Hey there, Karen. Welcome to The Law Entrepreneur.
Hi, Neil.
I'm glad you could take the time to be with me today. Karen, tell our listeners a little bit about your practice, how you came to be, and a little bit about how you're set up.
Thank you, Neil. I am a nurse and an attorney. When I went to nursing school back in the 80s, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. Somebody talked me out of that. I always kept it in the back of my mind. And when I was looking at obtaining a master's degree in the 90s, another lawyer talked me into learning Social Security disability as a nurse, and I worked in his practice and was a nurse case manager. I went to law school and started my own practice very shortly after law school. It was more of a general practice. I quickly narrowed it down to Social Security disability only. It was a fabulous fit for a nurse attorney. I've always been interested in medicine. I've always been interested in healthcare education. I've been interested in helping people solve their problems. And as a nurse, I felt as if I were covering one part of their spectrum of problems, their medical and health problems and health education. And as an attorney, I felt that I could help them problem solve another part of the spectrum. And I had built up a following of attorneys while I was still a nurse for whom I was doing case management. And I had a network that allowed me to go into private practice very shortly after passing the bar.
It's interesting. Let's kind of explore that a little bit. A lot of attorneys who have a different technical background or educational background to start with, they'll start with a broad kind of approach to that technical area and then narrow it down and try and refine it to a certain niche. But it sounds like, if I understand you correctly, that Social Security disability, even before you went to law school, back when you were going to nursing school and shortly thereafter, that seemed to be an interest of yours right from the beginning. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. That's what got me into law school. Basically, I was a nurse. I went to work in a law office specifically to learn Social Security disability. And from there, went to law school.
Was there something specific about Social Security disability that interested you? Yeah. Is there a personal story behind that?
Not a personal story per se, as if I were trying to obtain benefits for anybody to whom I was related, but I loved medicine and I loved nursing and I loved healthcare teaching and I loved helping people with medical problems. And these people had medical and legal problems. So it was a great combination. And to this day, when I talk to people who have claims, we talk a lot about their medical situation. I enjoy the science of it very much and the clinical mysteries that people present. And I enjoy talking to people about the possibility of getting better and rehabilitation. And in fact, I may be the antithesis of an attorney or a Social Security disability attorney. And please note that I said the word may. I often try to talk people out of filing who I think that there may be a chance that they can do better if they don't file.
Right.
They might be able to get back to work. They might be able to do some sort of job. I try to tell people, you might feel better if you were doing something rather than waiting for a check. And these are people that really, to me, sound like they've got some gas still left in the tank, so to speak. But I enjoy just discussing with people wellness and health education. So, I try to see, because of my nursing background, I feel that I hear between the lines when it comes to their health and medical situation. And I try to explore with people options, including what they called about, which is Social Security disability.
It's interesting because, if you were just an attorney without your nursing background and you arrived at the same spot as with a focus on Social Security disability law, you may not be as motivated for the overall holistic wellness approach that you have, given that you had that nursing background. So I think that makes for a great kind of rounded approach and really a fairness approach to the issue.
You're absolutely right, Neil. I do take, and that was the word that was missing, I do take a very holistic approach. And I want people to know there's options out there. And there's a lot of people who don't even understand about proper nutrition, and they don't understand the benefit of exercise. And their depression has them in such a bad spot that they really can't even think about being motivated to improve their lot. And if they could just have it improve somewhat, they wouldn't necessarily need Social Security disability. And the economics out there today are so bad that people think that this is their only option, and it's hard to explain to them that the government doesn't give you benefits because you can't get a job. The government doesn't give you benefits because you have to stay home and take care of a child or a vulnerable adult. Right. You have to be disabled.
Right. And it's, in terms of the merging of two different careers, a nurse and an attorney, as I go around talking to more and more solo practitioners, it's odd that there are actually quite a few nurses who have become attorneys, and I would think it's maybe a higher percentage than other professions, other technical and professional occupations. A lot of nurses gravitate towards working in a personal injury type practice, but I think that Social Security disability, maybe even Medicaid um, uh, qualifications are a really interesting intersection of that nursing background and the legal background.
Are you asking if I ever entertained the idea of personal injury?
No, I'm just making the observation that there are some nurses who are doing the personal injury thing. I actually think the niche that you focused in on would be far more interesting to me personally, but that's just a personal observation on my part. Let's go back to when you were a nurse before you went to law school, but you were working in a law firm. So how did that work out for you?
Well, it was fabulous. The attorney was very interested in my learning Social Security disability and running their Social Security disability department because they noticed that they had an advantage because of my medical background. And the attorney already was using my skills to summarize medical records for personal injury cases and to review medical records for potential medical malpractice claims.
Interesting.
So this was just a natural progression.
Yeah. How big a firm was that?
It's in terms of staff or dollars or what?
Staff. How many attorneys was a solo practice?
There were 2 attorneys. They were partners and numerous support staff.
Okay, so we would call it a small firm, but had a practice area in personal injury and medical malpractice and Social Security. Interesting. Yeah. So then you go to law school, and as I recall from your website, you went to University of Baltimore Law School.
Yes.
And you graduated. You're still with that firm upon graduation. What motivated you to become a solo practitioner?
I had parlayed my interest in being a nurse case manager for Social Security disability benefit claims into into a business while I was working with that law office.
Yep.
And, we had an understanding that I could work for other attorneys. And so I did go to other attorneys who did not have a Social Security practice at the time and say, if you are contacted by people who ask you about Social Security disability work, I'd like you to consider taking the claims, and I'd like you to let me work on the claims, and I will teach you how to do the hearings. And that worked out. So I had that following, and it was just a natural progression for me. When I got out of school, I actually went and worked at another law office, maintaining my contacts with all the prior attorneys, just moving, physically to another law office where I had their caseload as well. And I started learning other areas of the law as well. And it progressed out of that. I suppose. Yeah. I've always been entrepreneurial.
Well, it sounds to me, I'm just going to say, like a brilliant plan. You had a non-exclusive agreement with a law firm to help develop their Social Security disability practice that allowed you to work with other attorneys and literally build a business within their law firm that you then were able to, when the right time came, say, I have enough of a following and enough business connections that I feel comfortable going out on my own and making this a cleaner, more distinct entrepreneurial activity.
Absolutely. And the last office that I was in, I was helping in personal injury, med mal, workers' comp, domestic, and I wanted to focus solely on Social Security. So it wasn't economically feasible to keep an attorney on that they expected to work in all those other areas if the attorney only wants to do Social Security.
So let's go back to that decision point where you decided to go out on your own. What did you decide in terms of where you were going to practice and your office setup? Did you initially start working from home, or did you lease an office right away? Or
I did not want to work at home because I knew I wanted to see clients, and that was not a possibility for me to be seeing clients at home.
Sure.
I have a family. I looked in the back of, I think it's the Baltimore County Bar Association, the Advocate, which was their monthly journal. I think it's electronic now, but it was paper then. And I saw some office space that was available, and I picked space to look at that was not too far from my house, within a 10-minute drive. And I looked at this space and I took it.
Great.
And I'm sharing. I didn't take it on my own. There was an attorney. There was a couple of attorneys in the practice already there, and they were sharing space, and so they had space that I could sublet.
Sure, I think that's kind of a pretty typical approach for a lot of solos. They take office space in a suite that there are other solos or small firms co-located with them. What's been your biggest challenge having gone into solo practice by yourself?
Really good question. And I've been fortunate that before I arrived at solo practice and my current office space, I observed a lot of the issues in law offices, and I sort of got an education before I actually had to do it myself.
Yep.
And I think that staff early on might have been the issue. There was never an issue technically. I had the best of examples, ahead of time. There wasn't an issue with billing or accounting. I mean, I had everything in the bag before I got to this current situation. And I was doing, in my last office, I did everything myself. And two wonderful colleagues said to me something like, Karen, if you have 20 hours a week of work that somebody else could be doing, you need to hire somebody. And that made sense. We were at I think the solo conference that is every year in November. The three of us, we were at an intermission or something, and we were sitting there talking. And for the first time, somebody had couched it in a way that made sense to me. And I looked for a staff member. And that person was with me for a while. Was
that a paralegal or administrative aide?
She was an administrative aide. She was pursuing a degree in business, and we were together probably a year or less. And then I decided I wanted somebody with some different skills. And I was very, very fortunate. Somebody suggested to me they had a friend who had a daughter who was in high school, and she was in work study. So I literally had this young woman from a work study program in high school come to me. She got out of school, I think, 10:30 in the morning. That lasted for a couple of years. And then she graduated. And she's been with me for the last 8 years, and she's fabulous. And I've suggested to her, concerned that she may want to do something else. Would you like to go to college? For every year of college you complete, I'm going to raise your salary. She said, no, I'm happy where I am. And it doesn't seem like she wants to go anyplace else. And there hasn't, so clearly there hasn't been any turnover, and she is fabulous. I can't say enough good about her. The clients love her. She's compassionate, detail-oriented, responsible, loyal, trustworthy.
Well, let's give her the proper shout out and say thank you. Say thank you by name.
Thank you, Alicia.
There you go,
You're
Alicia.
Best. You rock.
This episode of The Law Entrepreneur is sponsored by Market Circle, the makers of Daylight. As I mentioned, I use Daylight as my case management tool, as it organizes all my cases, clients, my calendar, to-dos, emails, all in one app. And it's with me everywhere because it's on my Mac, my iPhone, and my iPad. If I get a call from a client when I'm out of the office, I can quickly pull up the details of the case on my iPhone, and then jot down some notes after the call, and it's all organized in Daylight. I use Daylight by myself on my own, but you can also use it in a team. You can track the status of cases, delegate tasks between one another, and check everyone's calendars, all without having to interrupt anyone or dig through papers. It really streams your workflow so you can work more efficiently. Managing email is a big part of how Daylight helps me. It integrates with Apple Mail, so as I'm going through my emails, I can just click and save emails to a client or to a case. That way, when I'm looking at the case details, I can see a history of all the emails with the client or any notes that I've taken and follow-ups with them all in one spot. So visit marketcircle.com/daylight to try Daylight free for 30 days. And be sure to let them know you heard about Daylight through The Law Entrepreneur to get a 50% discount on your first monthly subscription. In addition, I want to tell you about my friends at Spotlight Branding. I trust them to manage the internet presence for my law firm, and I recommend them to solo lawyers every chance I get. They build a great website for me, and they use video marketing, social media, email marketing, and more to keep me top of mind with my referral network. And this helps me generate more referrals and more business for my firm. Their services are designed to help lawyers get better results out of the resources they're already investing into marketing and business development. They create an internet foundation that makes all of your marketing work better. That's because these days almost every potential client is going to check out your web presence before they hire you. It's important that you create a strong first impression. And that's what Spotlight Branding has done for me, and they can do it for you too. So visit spotlightbranding.com to learn more. They're even offering a free gift for our podcast listeners, which you can access at spotlightbranding.com/TLE. It's interesting that a lot of people, a lot of the solos that we speak to, their biggest challenge is either getting new clients or marketing. In many cases, it's staffing as they grow. And you had this wonderful experience, this wonderful, I would call runway into the solo practice, being at your previous firm, before law school, through law school, that you really smoothed out all the bumps and you've been able to hit the ground running and stay running. And then in staffing, you kind of trained your own from the beginning. So it's been, and is that your total staff now, you and your one paralegal?
Yes.
Okay. What role, if any, does technology play in your firm?
It plays a huge role.
In what way?
Well, there's the computers that we obviously, use today for drafting correspondence. We use the cloud so that we can access our documents from any place. We have the voice over IP phones, which allow us to be any place and check the call log, receive the calls, call out from our personal cell phones, but through the voice over IP phone number. So we don't have to give out our personal cell phone on the caller ID, so to speak.
Yep.
So the one thing that I've recently started doing is allowing Alicia to choose a day of the week, if we're not having clients in the office that day, telecommute. Right. And she seems to really enjoy that. And I think it's very important as an employer not to treat your employees as if they're replaceable. We need to value our employees if we want our employees to value us. And that's, regarding salary and benefits. And if you can't do benefits, other perks like telecommuting or a longer lunch or just something to treat your employee the best you possibly can.
That's just such great advice, Karen, for everybody to pay attention to, because I think there's a tendency at times to do just what you say, to look at employees as being replaceable parts. And if it's not working, toss them out and start over again. But here you've had a young woman who's worked for you for 8 years, you're obviously treating her the right way. She has no desire to go anywhere else, and she's doing a great job for you.
Yeah, it's a wonderful fit. And sometimes, I'm at least 30 years older than my employee, at least that. But sometimes when I think that I need a break or I need to do something, I always think, oh, I should give this to Alicia. And then I think, wait a minute, you're the employer. You're 30 years older. Of course, you're going to be tired or you're not going to be able to do this that she can do. But I always think to myself, should I, give her this benefit that I'm giving to myself or this break or this time off or whatever, because she is so precious to me.
Let's go back to the technology standpoint for a second. Do you use a case management system?
Absolutely.
Which is your application of choice?
We started off with Time Matters. We were with Time Matters. When we left, I think Time Matters was on version 14. I started on Time Matters on version 5. And it was fabulous. It always had more bells and whistles than I ever needed. And I had that for my first law office and then the second law office after when I graduated. And I even had it in the law office I'm at now. And I think we got to version 10 with it. And then it started with iCloud and capability and interface. And it just had so many more bells and whistles than I ever needed. And I didn't want to be with Time Matters anymore. It was not something I needed anymore. So we went to Clio.
Okay.
And Clio has the cloud application. It is a cloud application, and it's everything that we need. I want to tell you something. You had mentioned marketing.
Yeah.
And okay. Interestingly, I receive emails all the time about SEO, leads, people trying to sell me clients, this and that.
Yep.
And on occasion, I'll have Alicia respond and say, hey, I could sell you leads. We're very fortunate because of the niche market. It's a very small niche. Social Security, you have more personal injury attorneys going into it now because of the downturn in awards and in personal injury. But Social Security has been a relatively small bar, and those who are experienced and have been in it for 20 years are few in this town. And those who are nurses and attorneys are much, much, much fewer. So there's not a problem for us in making it rain. But I think it's a huge problem if you're in something like personal injury and just getting out of school. And I think it's a huge issue if you're in school and you don't know what you're going to do with the degree when you get out of school. And if you don't have a clue about marketing, and if you don't have a clue about business, school won't teach you that.
Nope.
You have got to be an entrepreneur the day you get out of school, unless you have a job lined up.
And that's part of the reason, for this, or not part of the reason, it's the major reason for this podcast, is to bridge that gap for just that reason. And, there are many a marketing guru who, one of the phrases you hear often is the riches are in the niches. And you're a living example of that. I mean, it's a perfect confluence of all your previous training and experience to create a unique environment for your firm. Now, I'm assuming that you're running on Clio, that you're an Apple-based product firm.
No.
I
use a Mac, and a Mac laptop. At the office, I have a PC, and Alicia works on a PC. But because it's a cloud-based case management software platform, then it doesn't matter what we're using with desktop, that we can, to do our work.
Yeah. I guess in my mind, and this is an incorrect assumption on my part, since I first saw Clio run on a Mac, and most of the people that I know who use Clio are running on a Mac, I just assume. So bad assumption on my part, but you're absolutely right. A cloud-based platform such as Clio or Rocket Matter, it doesn't really matter what platform you're really on. It's platform independent.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use Clio for your billing?
Well, that's a good question. We don't have billing.
Okay. How?
Because as a Social Security disability attorney, you're not allowed to collect a fee unless the fee has been approved by a judge. And the only way the fee gets approved is if you have the fee agreement and you go to hearing, or the case is decided on the record and the judge approves the fee. And the fee for all attorneys doing Social Security is set by Congress. We all get paid the same thing. And the fee is withheld by the Social Security Administration and sent to you when the claim is, after the claim is awarded. So we don't have to do billing.
Well, that's an interesting situation. And let's then turn around in terms of human resources and payroll. Do you use a separate payroll system to pay yourself and Alicia, or do you handle that in-house?
I use something through Bank of America. It's I don't know what you call it, but it's a payroll service, and you enter your employee and the amount they get paid, and their direct deposit routing and all that, and the bank puts the money in their account each week. So
it's a direct deposit into their account. Does that also pay their taxes and medical insurance and that kind of thing? Or is Alicia, are they on their own to do that?
It pays you can set up, it does pay the FICA. I think you can set up the state. I do the state in-house and the social unemployment in-house. And you can set up any deductions you want, payroll deductions, and it'll go any place you want.
Yeah, with one or two employees, that's relatively easy to do or straightforward to do. So you may not need a payroll department or a payroll vendor to do that. So we've talked about your technology. We've talked about your staffing, your office environment. I just want to talk briefly here now about your website, which I mentioned to you pre-call that I love your website. There is so much information on your website. I have to assume that that's a strong marketing point for you, that people come to your website, find out all this information about their Social Security or their possibility of a Social Security claim, and view you as the expert in the field as a result. Did you do your own website?
I wrote the text. I did not put it up there in the cyberspace. I have a company that I use in California who's been hosting my site, I think, since 2008.
And who's that?
That's Justia.
Okay. Do they provided the website template and you provided the copy?
No template. I write the content, and they do all that template stuff.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if it's a template or what, but they do the back end stuff, the coding, and I say I want it to look like this, and they'll say, okay, well, what colors? I mean, they do the design stuff that I say.
So Justia is a full service entity for attorneys. Do you use them for other services besides your website design?
Like what?
Well, they do things in marketing. They help do video, create your videos. I know your website has a lot of video on it.
The video, actually, I think the video that you're referring to is from the government. It's public domain. That's some of it. And then...
So you're just linking to the Social Security Administration's website.
And then there were two videos of individuals that were interviewed by CBS and Katie Couric some time ago, and I happened to have something to do with the interviews that CBS did.
Oh, okay. So you have the right to post those. Well, like I said, I think I always, in preparation for the show, go to the guest's website and find out all I can about them, and I have to say, again, that there's so much information in terms of the articles that are there that you've written, the alerts and the tips, a whole section on healthcare that goes into great detail, and your FAQs, frequently asked questions, probably about 20 of them there, and there's just a lot to learn and a lot to take from it. So congratulations on all that copy. I think it really works well for you.
Thank you.
Karen, as we wrap up here, let's go ahead and make note of your website address so that people can take a look.
It's www.Levian Legal, and that's LEV like Victor, IAN like Nancy, legal.com.
And that's all one word, right?
Yeah.
And what's the best way for our listeners to get a hold of you if they want to follow up and pick your brain about something?
They can contact me at the office, 410-433-4040. They will end up speaking to Alicia initially, and Alicia schedules people for phone conferences with me, so they can have a conference with me just like you and I have had this chat. And people can also email me inquiries at mail, MAIL, at levianlegal.com.
Well, that's perfect, Karen. I want to thank you for being a guest on The Law Entrepreneur. I think yours is a great story. I wish you much success as a solo, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you, Neil. It's a pleasure.
Once again, I'd like to thank our friends at Market Circle, the makers of Daylight, and Spotlight Branding, helping to build your internet foundation. Visit marketcircle.com/daylight to try Daylight free for 30 days. And be sure to let them know you heard about Daylight through The Law Entrepreneur to get a 50% discount on your first monthly subscription. And also don't forget to visit spotlightbranding.com to learn more about building your internet foundation. And they're even offering a free gift for our podcast listeners, which you can access at spotlightbranding.com/TLE.